So if you haven't heard, there's recently been some very exciting news out of Jacksonville. They're building the Stadium of the Future, and basically our plan was just unanimously approved by the owners of the NFL. So here's what it'll look like from the ground level. These are the concourses. This is the what it might look like for the Georgia-Florida game. And obviously it's going to be convertible into a concert venue. They're going to have specialty seating too, if you're willing to pay for that. So just to comprehensively cover the features, they're going to have the protective canopy. This is the biggest feature. It's going to be a kind of transparent cover that'll cover the stadium from rain and some of the sunlight. So that'll cool things down, but still allow for air to flow through the stadium. They're going to have wider concourses that are going to go all the way around the stadium. They say they're going to have the lookout decks towards the top, and they say they're going to have communal spaces with the bars and food. They say local places, so I think there's good money if you were to bet, maybe there'll be like a Southern Grounds or something there. So that's pretty cool. They're going to have premium seating. Um, and of course, they're going to have lights and big screens, and they want to kind of park around the outside of the stadium. Now, kind of interestingly, they say that the new stadium is going to have 63,000 seats usually, compared to 67 seats we normally have right now, and the capacity to expand up to 71,000 seats for concerts and stuff. So here's the timeline. This is what's happening. They're going to start construction February of next year. Then from 2025 to 2026, they're going to play as normally, just with slightly reduced capacity for the seasons. Then in 2027, when construction's in full swing, they're going to play outside of Jacksonville. So that'll probably be in Gainesville. And then by August 2028, after just over 3 years, it'll be done. So the city of Jacksonville released this really interesting graphic, and I'll go over the most important parts. So the biggest question to most people is, how much does this cost? And most people are shocked when they hear that it's going to cost $1.4 billion, which is a shockingly large amount. But I think it's a little less shocking once you dig into it. So the first thing is that we're splitting the construction cost 50, 55, 45 between the city and the Jaguars. And that's because basically we need to pay 150 million to deal with deferred maintenance and get the stadium ready for construction. And then everything after that will be split 50-50. And part of what's really cool about this is the way this was paid for was there was a referendum in the year 2000 to have a half-penny sales tax that would fund general city improvements till 2030. Previous administrations thought it'd be a good idea to end that 4 years early and then put the projects on borrowed money to finish off. And obviously, I think in hindsight, that's like austerity gone awry, because by borrowing around $600 million, that would have cost the taxpayers 1.5 billion, which is even more than this whole stadium could have cost. So that's pretty awesome. And by just doing what was in the original plan, we save enormous amounts of money to make this feasible. So there's other reasons we're getting a good deal. First of all, the rent of the Jaguars is going to go up on average from 1.8 million a year to 1.3 million a year. Also, because these things almost always go over budget, all of the overruns and costs will be paid for by the football team. So as you can see in, like as examples, how these things tend to go over budget. The LA Rams went over 107%. And then also, we're getting a slightly better deal than a lot of other cities. Like, we're paying only 55%, whereas other cities will pay 100% or 82%, or even if you're smart, like Tennessee, you're paying 60%. And then just other things like general maintenance, it's going from 60%, 67% from the city paying to only 15%. And then the rest of that will be made up by the stadium kind of paying for itself with rent and ticket sales. There will be a large amount that comes from the bed tax. And then the team is also starting to pay up 15%, So it's a much better deal for the city, I think. And also, there's another thing. We're shifting the game day expenses to the Jaguars paying for, as you can see in this chart. So, and according to Elaine Brown, mayor of Neptune Beach, that's going to save the city $5 million a year, which over the course of 30 years is $150 million, which is about 10% of the total cost of this whole project. So that's pretty awesome. Now, according to Tourism Economics, which is a basically think tank paid they did a study funded by the Jaguars to estimate like what are the economic costs of this. And they say just the one-time cost of building this by, say, injecting this $1.4 billion into the Jacksonville economy from the jobs and the taxes and the general spending associated with this giant project, that's going to cause $2.4 billion in economic impact. And that's kind of, I'm pretty sure in like dollars spent in kind of a GDP sense, total economic activity. And then over the next 30 years, they estimate 21.7 billion total economic impact. That's 10 billion directly, then the rest of that 27 billion is indirect. So 6 billion for the stadium itself and those operations, and then 4 billion as kind of spillover into the adjacent areas. And then of course on top of that, over the next 30 years, they think it's going to bring in $1.3 billion in state and local tax revenues. So again, this seems like a pretty good, a very responsible kind of financial situation from the city. Now, for me, the most exciting part is on top of all of that, we're putting $150 million as a city towards community improvement, and that is going to be matched over the next 30 years. So $5 million a year from the Jags in downtown in just community improvements. So to break that down, $56 million is going to 3 downtown parks, and that's also going to pay for youth sports programs, and then $1 million for each of the 14 districts. They'll also get in park money to be spent as seen fit. So I think these parks are really exciting. You can see Shipyard West. We've got big plans for Shipyard West. Currently, it's really not much at all. So they're going to turn it into this nice big park. This ship's going to be a naval museum. That's really awesome. And then very close to that, I believe also on Bay Street, where the landing used to be, they're going to build this very this will be a landmark staple of a park. There's going to be this big chrome statue, which kind of fits with the stadium and the kind of chrome theming of Jacksonville. And this park is going to also, I believe, have shopping and like a playground. So it'll be really nice, and I think it can bring a lot of life and vibrancy to our downtown, whereas now it's just a grass field. And then Bay Street, this is the park where we have our jazz festivals and a lot of music festivals. This is the least kind of grand park they're gonna do, but they're gonna try and make it nice and make it more just user friendly for people crossing this street into the park, and give it more day-to-day use beyond concerts and stuff, while still trying to preserve the ability for it to hold these large events. Then one other exciting part is there's going to be 40 million for our East Side neighborhood. So as you can see, that is right here along the river next to our urban core. It's also directly above, directly north of the stadium. And they actually got a little more money because so many people from this neighborhood showed up to the meetings. We planned on giving them 30 million, but now they're going to get 40 million in workforce development and affordable housing and fighting homelessness. So that is really exciting. I think most of the workforce development is going to be in the form of construction training. So that's pretty cool. And as you know, of course, Jacksonville is having increasing problems with homelessness. So, and obviously increasing housing costs. So this will help fix some of our bigger issues. Also, I think it's appropriate because this neighborhood has a history of being kind of screwed over. Here's the historical redlining. And as you can see, here's the current household income averages. So as you can see, there's a pretty direct correlation between these two things. Here's just other photos. You can see a mostly shut down business strip, an old church, and you can see the kind of dense suburban style housing, economically really important for the city, but very underappreciated. So that's it for the Stadium of the Future. What it's going to bring to Jacksonville, it's going to shine bright, and hopefully, so will the city's future.